Morning. Morning. Okay, so we are today doing Yud Gimel and Aleph, and we are 4 lines down from the top of the page. I apologize for the way I sound, but I thought that after Shavuos I'm going to be sort of reinvigorated and sound fantastic. But maybe over Shabbos I'll catch up on some sleep. But the Mishnah on Yud Beis on the page that you just saw dealt with what do you do after the sort of first series of fasts have now worked, and the Mishnah talked about the second series of fasts that one does. And the Mishnah had said that again on base on base Avru Eluv Lainenu. What happens if these fasts had passed on and there was no answer? So based on there was this new set of fasts. And what was the halach about these fasts? Obviously, you could eat the day before, is no issue. These fasts have an Isser Malacha, and there's also an Isser of the Chamishinuyim, Chitzu B'sichu V'nilas Asana B'tash Shamita, V'nilas HaMechatzoyes, and he closed up the bathhouses. This is going to be key to understand today's Gemara, was that not only was there a situation on the second fast of an Isser Achila, but there's also Chamishinuyim, and not only that, we're closing the bathhouses. All right, so that's the background for understanding the Gemara here today. So says the Gemara from Bar Papa, right? One of our Papa's sons, Amar from Bar Papa. Amar Rav Chizda. So Rav from Bar Papa says the name Rav Chizda. Koshu Mishum Avel. Anything that is because of Avelus, anything that is because of a situation of mourning. As Rashi says, any fast, look at Rashi, called Taanit, any Taanit where the Chachamim asked up Rechitza Mishum Avel, because of Avel. That is to say, you could have fasts that the main reason behind the fast is not Avelus. And then you have fasts where the main reason of the fast is Avelus. What is the one fast that is fundamentally based upon Avelus? Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is an Avelus Yeshana. It's not an Avelus Chadash, it's an Avelus Yeshana. What does it mean, an Avelus Yeshana? It means it didn't happen. It's not a Teich Shiva, it's not a Teich Shlosh, not even a Teich Shana. It's 2,000 years ago. But nevertheless, the loss of the Beis HaMikdash is so primal, it's so felt, that even as Manazeh, we still have Avelus about it. The world is still missing so much that there's no Beis HaMikdash. So, as Rashi explains, when my Papa is saying that Rav Chizda, what's the point of this statement? Rav Chizda's is any Tainus when Chacham are answering a Bechitza, and that Tainus is predicated on Avelos, then we're going to say a specific halacha that applies there and not to any other fast. Says the Gemara, any fast day when Chacham are answering a Bechitza, because of Avelos, Kigoyin Tisha B'Av, like Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is that day where we have a fast day, where Rechitza is prohibited, and the fast day is predicated on Avelos. Then Avel also ben B'Cham ben Mitzayin. Then a Avel, right, will be actually also whether to wash in hot or in cold. But Kol Shu Misham Tainug, but any fast with Chacham would have asked up something, not because the fast day is predicated on Avelos, but rather predicated on Tainug. We want it to be Yom Tefillah, we want it to be Yom Tachanunim. So it's not predicated on Avelos, but it's predicated on, we want to diminish the Tainug. So then you're going Tainus Tzibur like a regular Tainus Tzibur, as opposed to, right, every Tainus Tzibur X Tisha B'Av. And again, we're not including Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is not a part of this, but the other fasts, for example, Fem Gedalia, right, Shavasa B'Tammuz, Asar B'Tevis, those fasts. So then the halacha is in those situations, B'Chamin Asar B'Tzaynim Butter. Then it would be Asar to use a hot shower But in cold, it would be mutter. In cold, it would be okay. Right, let's see Rashi over here. Kol shu mishum avel. Anything that's also because of avelos, called tainus sha'as v'chacham rechitza. Every tainus with our rabbis answered up rechitza mishum avel because there was a fundamental predication of this tainus on avelos. Kigoin tesbav like Tisha B'av. Shu mishum avelos. That's because of avelos of the korban v'chol right? Avel, mamish, shemesa lefanov. Then, of course, any regular avel, right, who has a mace mutal befanov, right? The situation of avel is chadasha, a situation where somebody's mamish and avel. This like tzaira tuva, but there he really has a lot of tzar. So then, ben b'cham ben mitzayin is going to be usher. Then, of course, a regular avel is usher in cham and tzayin. We're saying even on Tisha B'av, which is based upon Avelis, but it is based upon an Avelis Yeshana, which is very, very old. It's nevertheless still Aser Berachitza. So for sure, right, for in Avel himself, right, which is not an Avelis Yeshana, it's Mamash Avelis Chadash. It's something that's new, it's real, it's now. So of course, that's a situation where it's going to be also B'Mitzayim B'Mecham. But in a situation where you have a day where the Isser of the Rechitza is not, the day is not also because of Avelis. The Tainus is there because of Tainus. We want people to have a Takanunim and Tefillah. And the rabbis want to answer up Rechitza, then they were only answering up Chamin. They were not answering up Tzayin. So you could take a cold shower, but not a hot shower. It says, Rashi, Mishum Tainug. What do you mean when we say mitainug, mitzarin, v'esim, atzma, mitainug, right? We want people to be mitzar themselves and not to have too much enjoyment. So that is the vart of Rav Chizda, that when it comes to Avelus, a day that's dedicated to Avelus, so it's going to be usher to take any kind of a shower, hot and cold. But if it's a day, a tainus, which is not based upon Avelos, but it's based upon tsar. You want to have no less taina, you want to have more tefillah. So then it's going to be mutter to take a cold shower, but it's also to take a hot shower. Just in case anybody's nervous, we do say that on Tisha B'Av you cannot take any sort of a shower. But on other Tanesim, it is technically mutter to take a shower. But whether or not somebody's supposed to be a Baal Nefesh and not to take a shower at all, that you have to look at the Mishnah Berurah, you have to see, because there is certainly an Indian, some people, Mishnah Berurah writes that Baal Nefesh, even on the other Tanesim, could walk around and keeping the Chan Mishnah, doesn't have to, but in theory, it's available for somebody who wants to be Machmas. Let's see, Taisvis. Rav Chizda, Kol Shu Mishum Avel going Tisha B'Av. So any kindness which the rabbis answered up the day because of Avelus. So we said it's also I feel a bit silent, right? It's also to take a shower, even a cold shower. Right, but and Avel for sure it's also Ben Mecham Ben Mitzayim. So Tais brings down from the Yerushalmi that there was a person, Yosef, the son of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And what did he do on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur? He was Marchitz Yadav. He washed his hands. And he would wipe his hands on the towel, and then it was wet, so he would rub it on his face. And if you have trace martute, if you have tute kare, yes, he would make it wet in order to be able to wipe it on his eyes. So again, you see some solutions that some people had. If we're going with this situation, it's also to do a chit, it's also go take a shower, hot and cold. How do you clear out the look on your eyes, freshen up a little bit? So these are some of the solutions that they use. The next case is choshon mitum tainug. Anything that's also the day is not also because of us, but it's also because of tainug. We don't want people to be too excited. We want them to be sad. Right? We're in the second thesis. The third thesis on Gimel and Aleph. So the thesis says the Akshav Shein Tanasibu Bavel Tisha B'Av. Right? This is a Gemara we've had already a couple of times. That in Bavel they didn't have a real Tanasibu except for Tisha B'Av. Why? Because they had so much rain, so they didn't really feel the need to fast in terms of additional fasts. Whether they did the other three fasts, presumably, obviously, they did. What we mean to say is that they didn't have additional fasts that were relating to the rain because they had enough rain because the Tigris Euphrates, as I mentioned before, the various marshland, that area was very lush, not like today. So it says, so then mutar and afilu b'cham and afilu yudzayim b'tamas, it will be mutar on Shabbat b'tamas even to have a hot shower, b'tzayim gedalia, and even on tzayim gedalia, be mutar to have a hot shower. Kach pasek Rav Yah. That's the Rav Yah's psak. Rav Yael aviv aser lechetz b'cham. Rav Yael, the father of the Rav Yah, he disagrees. Says you can't do cham. And as I said, you certainly have the permission on the other fast to take a shower. Should you take a hot shower? I don't know. But a Baal Nefesh goes so far as to potentially even keep the Chamishi Nuim, even on the other fasts, not Tisha B'Av. That says the Mishnah Berurah. Again, I'm not saying that you should, but I do remember the first time I saw a certain rabbi in Israel, Rabbi Adaf, and he was wearing, torn shoes or whatever. It's like, wow, that's interesting. It's not on Tisha B'Av, it was on a different fast, maybe Tisha B'Av times, I don't remember which fast. And then somebody said to me, yeah, but he does it all the time. Every day he's doing it. It's like he's on a different level of, he never wears the shoes. Okay. So
then would you also fast from the night before if you're doing the Baal Nefesh level?
We're not, yeah, sure. But that is in the Mishnah, correct? But we're not discussing that here. We're just discussing the bare minimum. In other words, if you're going to go with the Gemara that you had on your Aleph, where we talk about what you do with Shnaz Rabbah and even in situations of sorrow, I didn't have a chance to really go into this. I'll record myself. I'll go through the Shalmi and all there's more than just the idea of Shnas Rabbah, and even maybe in this time of Tzara, right? You're supposed to be a situation not staying separate from the crowd. Right? There's a fundamental Indian in that, right? There are many people after the October 7th, when there was hostages, when there was soldiers, mamish, even today, but especially then, with terrible danger of so many people, that they took on some sort of inuyim on themselves. Because I'm going to stay in bed. I'm going to take a hot shower. I'm going to take a 20-minute shower, and people took on various things because of this idea. What we're saying here is the minimum. We're here not talking about the maximum. We're not talking about that, just a minimum. On Tisha B'Av, you take a shower, no showers. And the Avel, no showers. That's what we're saying here. Now, what about a situation of it's not a Tisha B'Av, it's a regular fast day. So now we're saying here, Machlekes, Tesis, bringing down the Rav Yah, that even want to take a hot shower. We're bringing down from this Gemara. The seeming reading of this Gemara is that there was no problem of taking a cold shower, but a hot shower was not okay. And then we're bringing down the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah, and maybe even you can go even to Chamesha and Nuyim if you're bound nefesh. But it's definitely not the black letter required halacha. And over there in a regular fast day, it's not because you're doing Ima and Echibitzar and you're dying the Hamas that has something to do with anybody. No, it's because you want to take on something extra, but it's not necessarily that's required. Okay. Good. Says the Gemara. So that line of Rav and Bar Papa in the name of Chizda, excuse me, we're not going to try to upslug that today in a variety of ways. That's the game for today, is to upslug this line of Rav Chizda and see if it's correct. It says the Gemara, Ravidi Bar Avin Af Anan Namitanina. So Ravidi Bar Avin says, oh, we learn like this also. It says in the Mishnah that we close up the bathhouses. So this is a big raya. If we're closing up the bathhouses, then why? Right? The Mishnah said to us about the fast days, we're closing the bathhouses. When you go to a bathhouse, you going for a cold shower? No, you go to a bathhouse for a hot shower. So Ravidi Bar Avin is saying, if you're closing up the bathhouses, it's a raya, like what Rav Chizda said, because clearly the Isser is only on the hot water. There's no problem taking a cold shower. This is Ravidi Bar Avin's proof that he wants to bring from the Mishnah to Rav Chizda. So says Abaya, Amalei Abaya, Vi B'Tzayin Aser. So Abaya says now to Rav Chizda, to Rav my Papa. So he says, really, Amalei Abaya, Vi B'Tzayin Aser. So if, let's imagine, you want to say that Satan is mutter on Shar Taniyos. Let's just posit, for example, that Satan is us. They're saying it's us to take a hot shower and a cold shower. What exactly are you going to say? Should you lock up the rivers? How do you lock up the rivers? Well, I always like to make the joke that the difference between the Rambam and the Ashkenaz and the Sfardim, the Gemara in Kedushin, the Gemara Kedushin pay bays. The Gemara talks about we get the Mahav fast. So there's a machlekes there between Rashi Taisis and the Rambam. How it happened? According to Rashi and Taisis, it's mashma about the shiurim that the man and woman came to the shiurim, the drushes, and they were making like that. Too much fun. Fine. But by Taisus, that wasn't it. No, they were mingling too much by the rivers. So Taisus says in Hilos Yantif, they have to put shaitrim by the rivers on Yantif, so people shouldn't intermingle too much. Shouldn't have too much fun on Yantif. There'll be too much batsiring and co-mingling. So that's an example. You're going to put cops by the Nahars. But Rabbi is saying, seriously, what's your raya that Satan is also? You're right, it says that's because it says that you close the Merchatzah. It's not a raya. You can't close up the rivers. You can't close up people from having cold water. So there's no raya. There's no raya b'chlal. That's Rabbi's lotion back to Rav and Bar Papa. Yeah. Says Rashi. Yes, we know in our mission it says that you have to close up the bathhouse, common, which is the hot water. But it sounds like Tzayin is mutter. So I'm like, why are you talking about Clinton Mavi? If our Tana in fact held that Tzayin is also, hey, how would you want him to write it? How could he possibly lock them up? It's not going to happen. So there's no raya that the bathhouse. I'm sorry, there's no raya that Tzayin is also. Well, there is you have the raya that they were able to close up the bathhouse so that they closed up. So what they can control, they tried to control. It's not a raya that Satan is mutter. It's only a raya that the little bit it means they had. They tried the best to make sure you don't go to have a hot shower. Fine. So the Gemara. Yeah. If you look here, it's one of the classics, right? We have a Taisus Vanel and Machatzes Pirish. Shein Chamin, right? Again, obviously Rashi already said all that. It's one of these, yeah. So next Taisus is also second Nares. Kloimar have also b'tzayin meikul missing seichrim. Nares, you're going to say that you're going to be able to lock up the rivers. Obviously, you can't lock up the river. Kloimar, so you cannot be medactic from this, from the fact that it says that you're closing the merchatzos, because they have no options to close off Taanit. So they have no options to close off Taanit. So there's no right that Taanit is awesome. Okay. So the Gemara, what we're up to now is Amar Rav Shisha Breder Rav Idi. So Amar Rav Shisha Breder Rav Idi. Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, right? Bar Oven, right? This is mamish one of the examples of what the Gemara says about the Chut HaMeshul Shlem Harry Yinatek, right? So you have Rav Idi Bar Oven, who has the son now Rav Shisha Breder Rav Idi Breder Rav Oven, right? So you basically have a few generations here of serious Talmidei Chachamim. Yeah. So Rav Shisha Breder Rav Idi. So he tries to now explain his father. Right? Abai is making fun. He's saying, this doesn't make any sense. You want to lock up rivers? No, you can't lock up the rivers. So you can't prove anything that Tzayin was awesome. Or that Tzayin is mutter. It's irrelevant. The simple approach that for Abai would be that Tzayin could be 100% awesome, and we just have nothing to do about it. Something more Rav Shisha Breder Rav Idi. Abba, my father, meaning who? Meaning Rav Idi. Hachi Kashale, this was his problem. He was bothered like this. Michli, let's understand what it says in the Mishnah. Tanan Asabirachitza. The Mishnah didn't say Benoel and Asamerchatzos. The Mishnah already said it's also to Mechitza. And then it said Noel and Asamerchatzos. So Lomali, what do I need to say? Once I already answered up in Mechitza, why do I have to have Noel and Asamerchatzos? But that's why my father thought that's why my chamin it should be aser, and my tzedin should be mutter, because you already made a law. The law is clear. Rechitza is aser. So once you already made the law of Rechitzas Aser, so then why do you have to have another law that says no Nesamechatzois? Obviously, the answer is Pasha, because we have what's it called? Big Brother, right? We don't trust people. So yes, we're telling you it's also the Rechitza. We also lock up the bathhouse just to make sure that you won't go try to do a Rechitza. So what's the question? But no, Rav Idi Bar Oven is saying no. The fact that it said no, it's a mechatza is after it already said that it's in mechitza. That's telling you that it's something you could darshan. Because once it said it's also mechitza, obviously you can't take a bath, a hot shower, clothes. You can't do anything. Then you say no, it's a mechatza. That means that you're focused really on chamin. And so his mother says, no. We would try to control what we can control. It's within our ability. There's no right against saying that it's mutter. Signing can be 100% answer. We can't close off the rivers. Whatever we're able to close off, we close off, and we close off the Berchatzot. That is the basics of the Gemara here. Fine. So Zot the Gemara. Yeah. So Leila Messiah. Zot the. I was sorry, I forgot Rashi. Rashi Abba. Rashi says, "Who's the Abba of Idi?" Haching Kakashle last Nisan. This was those problems with our mission. The Kamashmami no Dloyasel Chamin. Michli. Tani Basis and Asum Rechitza, Ustam Rechitza Bemechamim and Sain. So Lamali Sulamedar, who missed Lavanail, and what I have to say, Vanalis and Merchatzoyas, I lament with the Dafka Chamin. That's to teach you Dafka by Chamin is also. By Zot Yomar, Leim Messiah. Let's bring a ride like this. The Mishnah tells us, Kol Chayve Tfila is Tov Kedarka Ben Tisba'av Ben Yibiyam Akipurim. Somebody's Mechuyev in Tfila. Somebody has, let's say, a Yoledis, right? Somebody who's mechuyev to do a tefillah, Nida. She has to have a tefillah on this day. So she could do the tefillah even on Tisha B'Av, right? Even on Yom Kippur. Says Rashi, Leim Messiah, Leil Rav Chizda, the Omar Kol Shu Mishum Ovel, also tefillah b'tzayin. Let's say this is a right to Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said that anything that's related to Avelos is also even with cold water. So when we say that kol chayve tefillah satayv and kedarkan beim tishba beim yom kippurim b'mai, when we say that they're able to do azat tefillah even on Yom Kippur, even on Tisha B'av, when b'mai, with what kind of water are they using? Ilaim b'chamin, right? If they're using hot water, so the Gemara says, how could that be? Tefillah b'chamin me'ika. This is a line we had in brachas, right? Is tefillah with hot water even possible? Not possible. Why? Because tefillah with hot water is shuven in it. It's mayim shuven. We'll touch the text quickly here about this. Obviously, it's not a problem with the hot mikvahs that we have today, because those hot waters, which are done by Shacham, are less than part of the mikvah. That would be considered to be a problem. Right? So if the 40 saw, you have only a certain amount that's being heated up in that manner, and that's why that's not going to be an issue. But so for our purposes here, we're saying that a regular hot mikvah, that would be ma'am shuvin, that would not be okay. So obviously, what kind of a tefillah are they doing? El v'tzainin. The tefillah they're doing, that they're mechuyev to do, they must be doing it as a cold mikvah. They're doing a cold dip. So then, what does that mean? That who's able to do this dip on Yom Kippur? Only the chayve tefillahs. For chayve tefillahs, and only the chayve tefillahs will have to do this cold dip on the mikvah on Yom Kippur. But in a shachrina live, and nobody else is able to do so. So now, one is if nobody else is able to do so, what's that a raya to? That's a raya against what Rav Chizda said. Rav Chizda said that what he called that anything that's mishum avel is going to be aser ben mecham ben mitzainin, right? And what we're saying of it, but anything mishum tainug, right? That's going to be aser what? That's going to be aser only on cham and not tzainin. So over here you see that on Tesha B'Av, which is aser bishum what? It's aser mishum avel, and nevertheless you see that you're able to do tefillah what for these people for your lettuce, be able to do a tefillah what b'tzainin, but sharachrina, but anybody else is not able to do so. So they're not able to do so. Why not? Because aser b'chamin and b'tzainin. So that'll be a raya. I'm sorry to Rav Chizda, who says this idea. Says Rashi. And they're able to do the tefillah. Tefillah b'cham me'ika, is there such a thing as tefillah b'chamin? No. Why? Because chameh are hayshuvin in it, right? In order to warm up the water, would have to then be drawn water. So it says the Rashi, Allah but seinin. So it must be we're dealing with seinin, we're dealing with cold water. V'chayv tefillas en. Mishum tefillah b'zman mitzvah shemim maher l'taratzmei. So they have a mitzvah to do the tefillah, so that the Kodesh Chacham on Tisha B'av doesn't deal with them. But Kuli Alma, but the rest of the world, loy b'chamin, v'loy b'tzayin, they're not able to do any sort of a mikvah dipping, not b'chamin or b'tzayin. And that's the right of Chizda, that he said everything that's mishum over, like Tisha B'av, is also bein b'chamin, bein b'tzayin. Yeah, we have an exception for the tefillas mitzvah, v'nida, or yoledus, whatever, but that's an exception, but not for anybody else. For everybody else, it'll be also bein b'chamin, bein b'tzayin. And so therefore, for Avel, so we also be mechamin bein b'tzayin. So this is one we want to bring a raya to Rav Chisda. Says the most no raya. Why not? Says the more Rav Chana bar Katina. Right, so you remember we had already before. What was it on? Was it on Chesam base? Tesam base? We had Tesam base. We had Daniel bar Katina. Now we have Rav Chana bar Katina. I'm not sure if it's the same family or not. So Amar Rav Chana bar Katina, what was his reason why this is not a proof to Rav Chisda? No, this could be talking about Chamei Tiveria. Anybody remember we've talked about this before in Brachas? Why Chamei Tiveria is a special underground springs. The mamish, even to this day, there's still the Chamei Tiveria is still there. You can go there. You see the ground smoking and the water's hot, right? Right. The connection to Gehenim is, not for now, but yeah. So Rav Chanan Bar Katina is saying that it could be this mission is discussing a situation of Chamei Tveria. In other words, what do you mean by Chamei Tveria? By Chamei Tveria, as Rashi explains, the Hilkach Chayve Tfilas Ed. That's where the Chayve Tfilas can go in. In other words, there's no problem with them. They have a Tfilas mitzvah. They can go in even in the hot water of Chamei Tveria. Avokuli Amalai. But the rest of the world, the rest of the people cannot go in the Chamei Tveria. They don't have a Tevilas mitzvah, but they could go and take a cold shower. There's no right to have Chizda. In other words, if you want to limit the case of this Mishnah to just for Chamei Tveria, so then when it said that that if you say that the Chayvet Tfilas are going to go do a dip on Tisha B'Av because the Mechuyevet have a Chiyav of Tfilah, so then the Gemara said, well, obviously you're not talking about B'chamin, you must be talking about Tzainin, because the Tfilah B'chamin, Mi'ika, there's no state Tfilah B'chamin, that'd be Mayim Shuvin, it wouldn't be a good mikvah. So I'm sorry, so the Gemara is saying, no. There is a good mikvah, which could be what? Hot? A mikvah, the Chamei Tveria. A mikvah that is not like, the Arizal mikvah, super cold. Right? Imagine you had a hot spring, right? A hot Ma'ayan. Right? These are all kosher mikvahs. It happens to be that Arizal mikvah is super freezing. But if it was super boiling, it would be a kosher mikvah. And then if we're talking about that kind of a situation, we have a hot mikvah. So that's what we're saying is mutter to go in. It's no problem for somebody who's doing a tefillas mitzvah to go into the Chamei Tveria do the dip. That's not a problem. But you have no raya then. If they're able to go in to do a hot dip, then it's no raya that it's usher bein mecham, bein mitzayna for everybody else. Why? Because for everybody else, it's also to do Chamei Tveria. But mitzayna it will be mutter. So it wouldn't be a raya then to Rav Chisda. Good? That's the Gemara. So, could I just do the Tosfos for a second? The Tosfos says over here, oh wow, time is flying. So, Tosfos says, Tfilah b'cham me'ika, Marbekut Tzmayim she'uvim, Midolek Amar Mishkach L'Tfilah, Vikshir b'cham me'gan shehukmu v'hum shechu lebreicha, because we're not talking here about a hamshach idea. Al-sham b'cham Tveria, right? What we say instead is b'cham Tveria, shlachiyat tekul shov. Right, I feel like damn shachal behind tefillah, but if the whole entire mikvah was shov, right, and that's how you got the hot water, that would not be okay. But again, as I said, in the mikvahs that we have today, the fact that it's hot mikvah is fine because the amount that it's doing hot by amshacha is not so significant. Okay, So Zodi Marna, if we're saying that we're talking about Chametz Feria, Ema Seifa, then how do I deal with the Seifa part of this Mishnah? That I'm Rav Chanina Segana Kainim. Rav Chanina, the sort of the second in command of the Kainim, said, Hidai hu beis elikeinu la'aved olav tefillah pam achas b'shana. Rav Chanina Segana Kainim said it's the beis elikeinu, the beis hamikdash is worthwhile losing one tefillah a year over it. Right? What do we mean on this? Says Rashi. Right? Says Rashi, Kedai Roy who basically the base Hamikdash is worthwhile to lose a tefillah over it. What do we mean that we say it's worthwhile to lose a tefillah over it? V'im Isa, right? The sign in mutter, and if you're gonna or V'yam, Sargmar says V'yam is sign in mutter, Yichas b'tzayin, right? When Chanin Sagana Kainim saying is that it's worthwhile for our base Hamikdash to lose one tefillah a year, right? You're not being able to be toivel. When is that? When is that? It's going to be on Tisha B'av. You're not able to be toivel. So if you say that it was mutter to what? To do it bitzainin, so why mean you're losing a tefillah? You're not losing the tefillah, right? It's also actually they were very chassidish, right? They were doing tefillahs every day, and losing one tefillah a year. No, it's not a right. Why is it not a right? It's about the kahanim. Of course, they do tefillah every single day, right? Well, what's the situation over here that we're saying that the that it's kedai? Chinas Sagana Kenim is saying it's kedai that we're losing one tefillah a year. Why? Because it's for the base hamikdash. So the Gemara is asking, if you say about tzayin it's mutter, so yichatz b'tzayin. Why are you losing the tefillah? You just do a cold mikvah dip. Why are you losing it out? Says the Gemara. So therefore, we have a proof. Says Rashi, kedai roy beisalakin v'im isa kedim mukmas lo b'tzayin shari. If you want to say that tzayin is in fact mutter, the ma'ikam mahadil Reb Chanina, the Tanakama, the Rosh Hashanah is saying to the Tanakama, me'iva tefillah, that you're losing out on a tefillah like one day a year, you're not doing a tefillah. It's true that you don't have the ability to do a hot dip only if you're a tefillah mitzvah, like in a situation of the Nidir Ledes, Mishum Kvei basically Kainu, but you're missing out one tefillah because of the coverage to the Kingdom of Tushaba, Hamati Tavli B'Tzaydin. Right? You don't have to miss the tefillah. Do a tefillah B'Tzaydin. If Tzaydin is mutter, then do a tefillah B'Tzaydin. What's it clear? B'tzayin am yasiri, v'hanu d'amar lavid. Must be that tzayin is aser, and that's what it means. The ibud, you're losing out on the tefillah, and that therefore will be a raya then to Rav Chizdu holds that b'tzayin will be aser and not just b'chamin. So Rav, it's not a raya. B'asud lo shchiach tzayin. It could be talking about a situation of a place where they don't have, where it's not shchiach to have a tzayin type of mikvah. What do you mean? Again, as Rashi explains, we're talking about chametz tveria. If we're talking about chametz tveria, so there, why are you going to go to a cold mikvah? You have chametz tveria there, right? You go to the hot mikvah. That's what is available. Of course, that's what you're going to use. So once you're using that, so if you use a hot mikvah and you're not using a cold mikvah, so then by definition, there's no raya. So he's saying kedaihu la'abed, where it's based on the keto, it's worthwhile to lose one tefillah a year. Yes, they're losing that tefillah because that's a tefillah of chamin. But a tefillah of tzayin, that would not be answered. That would still be mutter. So again, no raya. Then the Rav Chizda is correct. If we're talking about chametz tveria, there's no raya. Okay. Dodimar, another attempt. Tashma kisha amru aser b'malacha. When with this, that we say that it's aser malacha, and the Mishnah said that it's aser malacha. Lo amru ela b'yoyim. Right. It's aser only by day. This is talking about Tisha B'av. Avo b'layla mutter, but by night it will be mutter. This next Rashi for me is for sure another raya that it's not Rashi. Listen to this, Rashi. Here we're not talking about Tisha B'av anymore. So says Rashi about any fast. By one of these fasts that we're saying that by a Taanit tzibur, that when is it also do malacha? Only by day. Right? But by night is mutter. Mehacha mashma says Rashi, the Beleli Tisha B'av mutter b'malacha. From here says Rashi, it's mashma the night of Tisha B'av is mutter do malacha. Ve'ein bittul el b'yoyim. It's only aser by day. Aval ein mefaris ben adavar. Don't make this public. You made it public. You put it in the commentary. Okay, I don't know, but in any event, that's what Rashi is saying. So again, so back to the Gemara. Toshma kishamru aser malacha le'amr el b'yoyim. When we say that there's an iser malacha, we said it's only aser when by day. Aval b'layla. But by night, we're saying that it's a mutter. And we said that it's also to do nilas sandal. We said it's only usher in the city. When you're on the road, it's okay. Okay, so what's the situation? When When you're on the road, you should be wearing the sandal. When you come to the town, you take it off. When we said that it's asur mechitza on the fasts, that's only talking about the whole entire body. But the face and the hands, the feet, then that will be mutter. And so too, you find that to be true by somebody who is suffering from nidui, right, or is in avelos. So now the Gemara wants to say, after reading this whole Mishnah, my love, akulu. What are we talking about when we're saying that an avel is aser in these things? It's going on everything, right? It's aser in rechitza, right? He's just able to be mutter, to be upon the other v'raglav. And so says the Gemara, my lava, cool. We must be talking about everything. Uvemaya skinon, right? And what are we talking about? That we're saying that it's so ilema bechamin. If we're saying that it's chamin that we're coming to answer up, so upon of yod v'raglav mishari, would that be permitted to do upon of yod v'raglav? Rav Shesha says aval asur loisha that's boy bechamin, and aval is asur to put his hands into hot water. A lot of it's saying we must be talking about sign, and what we're saying is that part of yod v'raglav is mutter. And what's not mutter? It's not mutter if one of the other raglav is mutter. But what's not mutter is tefillah. And we're saying what kind of tefillah? Tefillah b'tzainin. So therefore that comes out. It's a right against what Rav Chizda said. Rav Chizda said, now we're talking about the second part of Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said that by tainas, it's also to do chamin, but it's mutter to do tzainin. And from here it's mashma that it's also to do even b'tzainin. Forget chamin, even b'tzainin is also. Why? Because it's saying part of the raglav is mutter. We're comparing aval to the whole thing, and obviously aval is not mutter in chamin whatsoever. So we must be talking about tzainin. And what we're saying is aval is aser in part of the other. An aval is aser in tefillah, like everybody else is aser in tefillah, bit tzainin, and even bechamin is only mutter in part of the other raglav. That's therefore the raya against Rav Chizda, because Rav Chizda said if you have a tainus mishum tainug, that's mutter in tzainin, and it's also only in chamen. Says Rashi. Says Rashi, Ilim b'cham mishar v'am Rav Shesha aval asalosh it's bo b'cham al lav tzainin my lava kul hotik tani v'chein atam moitzum l'vavel akol hanika. It's going on everything. V'afilu architza. Which the tainus tzibor and a regular tainus also look it's called gufa v'afilu b'tzainin. It's also to wash your whole body, even b'tzainin. V'tiyuf to l'raf from our papa. Now then, mekash on Rav from our papa says the most raya. There's no raya against what Rav Chizda said. Why? Because what are we talking about? Because what are we talking about is not sign. We're talking about chamin. There's more chamin. There's no raya here against what Rav Chizda said. We're talking about chamin. And you're going to ask, it says, what do you mean that we're saying that are a tiny seed where somebody's usher to do bechamin? And then he said, and he said, what's the chiddush? Of course, an avel is usher and chamin. Asharakai. The avel is not talking about washing part of the other varaglav bechamin, is talking about the avos aser and rechitza and ilas hasandal. That's what we're talking about. I'm sorry, in ilas hasandal is what's going on. And in the Isser Malacha, it's not going on the rechitza aspect. It's not going on it. Now, it's obviously a bit of a torture way to read it, but if we say that, then there's no raya that on a regular Tainus tzibur that it's going to be aser in chamin and mutter and sayin. It could be. I'm sorry, it's no raya against that. It could be that it's also in chamin and mutter in sainin. You wanted to bring a raya that it's also in chamin and in sainin. What's the raya? The raya is the fact that we thought we were talking about this whole thing was discussing sainin, because obviously avos pasha is also in chamin, and therefore then it's going to come out that it's also the on a regular title tzibur even in chamin. It's only mutter pon of the varaglav. Amash malon, no. Kamash one pon of the varaglav. We're talking about is a situation of chamin, and we're saying that it's also on a tainus for chamin. That's what Rav Chizda was saying. On a tainus mishum tiny is only also by chamin. It's not also b'tzainin. Good. Now let's just finish the last lines. Says the Gemara, Toshma, one last shot at the apple. The Amr of Abba Akayin, Mishum Rabbi Yosi Akayin. Maisu, Baruch Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina. Now, but very sad. The sons of Yosi Rabbi Chanina passed away. Varachat's b'tzainin kol shiv, and he took a cold shower all 7 days. How can he take a cold shower all 7 days? A cold shower all 7 days is what? Is Avel. What did Rav Chizda say? For sure, in Avos also bechamin and betzainin. How can you take a shower all 7 days? So you see a raya against Rav Chizda says, "Well, no raya. Hasam kishatavchu avelav habits." A situation in Nebuch where he suffered avelos after avelos. Right, one person died, then another person died. So he had avelos following an avelos. Right, the Taanit tachu avelos zechazeh. If somebody has an avelos following from the other, ichbet sairai. Make a batar, right? If somebody's going to have his hair, it's going to be too heavy on him. Of course, he could cut it with a shaver. Umechabes ksusai b'mayim, and he could wash his clothing, right? Because it's too long of a time. It's too long of a time to have it continual one after the other. So therefore, we're more makel. So Rav Chizda b'tar avalim misparayim were makel on the tar, like using like a razor, but not the scissors, or b'mayim v'loy b'neser, right, with water, and not some sort of I don't know, detergent. It's called, right, v'loy b'chol, not some sort of a sand, right. So that would be, in other words, we're makel to a degree, but not fully, right. Rashi says, with tar, or makel on the tar. Rashi says we're talking about a situation. Makel b'tar says the shakal purtu mina, right, a little bit. We're going to do it the derech shinoi, not something that will be an easy type of a cut. As Taisus explains, in the Hichbet Sairai, the bottom Taisus pirish derech aticha, right, like cutting, like avaloi kedarke derech iluch. We're not shaving, like not a normal kind of a cut. All as a part of what the idea of saying that in a situation that this person found himself, where he was being great, it's called Shiva. There's no rayas here that it's against Rav Chizda said about Avos Asr B'Cham Mitzainin, because the reason over here was it was mutter was because it had Avelos following that kind of a tzara nebuch. So we're more makel in that situation. That person would be able to have even a cold shower. It's not a raya then against Rav Chizda. All right, stop over here. Have a wonderful shower.